If you're moving from MYP to DP or are currently in DP1 and wondering what this whole IBDP journey is really like, you're in the right place. Because we're 3 IBDP students here to give you a full breakdown, from choosing your subjects to balancing extracurriculars and everything in between. We'll be sharing what the DP really feels like, not just what it's written in Google or textbooks, but what it's like to live through it day to day. You'll hear about how we managed deadlines, survived our very first IAs, balanced CAS with academics, and found ways to stay motivated when things got overwhelming. Basically, we've been through it all. The highs, the lows, and all the late night study sessions. And we're here to make this process a lot more smoother for you. So think of this as an inside guide from people who've been in your shoes and made it to the other side. Hi, I'm Riya Sharma and I'm in DP2, and I'll be covering how the MYP to DP transition works and how to make the right subject choices.
Hi, my name is Khadija. I am from DP2 and I am going to walk you guys through how DP content is structured, what extracurriculars you should focus on, and what the academic expectations are really like.
And I'm Ahmed, finishing off with the general DP timeline, crucial tips, and our go-to resources.
Let's start right from the beginning. How different is DP from MYP? So the first big difference you'll notice is that DP goes a lot deeper than MYP, not broader. In MYP, you explore a little bit of everything: science, humanities, arts, and design. And you're encouraged to make connections across all of these fields. But when you move into the DP, this changes. You narrow it down to 6 subjects, 3 at higher level and 3 at standard level, and you really dive deep into each one of them. Instead of just learning broad concepts on the surface, you start analyzing, questioning, and applying them in a lot more complex ways. For example, in MYP science, you might just study general biology or chemistry topics, but in DP biology, for instance, you'll actually break down the cell processes, genetics, and biochemical pathways in detail. It's more about understanding the why behind everything you learn in the DP. Also, a plus point, you get a lot more independence through things like the internal assessments, where you can design your own investigations for each subject, and the extended essay, wherein you research a topic you're truly passionate about. So in general, the DP just really pushes you to think critically and take ownership of your learning, instead of just following a set curriculum. It's challenging, but it's a lot more rewarding once you start making use of those real-world connections. You'll also deal with what the IB calls the core components: the extended essay, theory of knowledge, and CAS if you're taking the full diploma. And honestly, they're not just extra work added on top of your subjects. Each one teaches you something different and really important. The extended essay is your first real taste of independent academic research. You choose a topic connected to one of your subjects and you spend several months on end exploring it in depth. It's kind of like writing a university-style mini-thesis. For example, you might investigate how caffeine affects reaction time for a biology EE, or analyze gender representation in Shakespeare for English, or study how coffee prices influence consumer demand for economics EE. You're guided by a supervisor, but most of the process is self-driven, from forming your research questions to collecting data and writing your findings in a structured 4,000-word essay. It can definitely be challenging and time-consuming, but it's also one of the many rewarding parts of the DP because it lets you pursue something that's entirely your own interest. Then of course, the favorite, TOK, theory of knowledge. It sounds very abstract at first, but it's really about understanding how we know what we claim to know. You'll explore a diverse range of questions here, like can emotion be as reliable as reason when making decisions, or how does technology affect the way we produce knowledge? It's a space to make connections between all of your subjects and reflect on your own perspective as a learner. What's really cool about TOK is that there's no right or wrong answer, and it doesn't just stay in the classroom. It actually changes how you see everyday life. You start noticing bias in the news, questioning assumptions in conversations, and thinking a lot more critically about the world around you. And finally, one of the more favorite parts, CAS, creativity, activity, and service. This helps you keep balanced, and it's all about exploring your interest beyond academics, whether that's community service, sports, or some other creative project. It helps you reflect on who you are as a person beyond your academics and studies, not just as a student, but also as a learner. So while the core might sound like extra workload, it actually really just shapes your DP journey, teaching you reflection, balance, and time management along the way. Another big change is how you're graded. In DP, every subject is graded out of 7 and your final scores are based on a mix of internal and external assessments. Exams play a huge role than they did in MYP. They usually make up the majority of your final grade in DP, and they test how well you can apply what you've learned under real exam conditions. But that of course doesn't mean that it's all about memorization. IBDP exams are designed to test your understanding, your analysis, and ability to think critically. Then, of course, you have your internal assessments or IAs, which count for a significant portion of your score. On average, for each subject, it would be around 20 to 30%, depending on whether you've taken that subject as HL or SL. So, essentially, these are projects or kind of investigations that you complete throughout the year. It's like writing a research essay in English, running an experiment in science, or doing some economic analysis in economics. They let you explore topics you're genuinely curious about and showcase your learning in a much more personal way. So overall, your DP grades reflect both your performance in final exams and the consistent effort you put in throughout your IAs as well. So final exams would probably be around 70 to 80%, whereas the IAs, depending on which subject it is and the level you've taken, would be around 20 to 30%. And really, it's very important that you leverage this, as IAs are a lot more scoring, so you should really just put in that time and effort to get a good grade. All of this really requires a lot of steady work, a lot of organization, and deep understanding rather than last minute studying. So remember, be consistent throughout the year. And honestly, the biggest shift for me in DP would be independence. Unlike MYP, DP really expects you to manage your own deadlines, and no one's going to be chasing you for drafts anymore like in MYP. You have to plan ahead, you have to keep track of assessments across subjects, be it, like using tools like Excel, and you really just have to take responsibility for your own learning in DP. Since there's so much workload, it becomes very hard to sometimes manage the work and you tend to forget. And speaking of expectations about the DP, let's explore in depth how the actual DP content is spread out over the 2 years.
In the diploma program, each subject is either at a standard level or higher level. Higher level means that there will be more content. The depth at which the content is covered is much deeper, and there are usually some external components that is expected out of HL. Say for example, the higher level essay in English HL. Now, in terms of the pacing of this content, in year 1, the content is mostly focused on the core ideas as well as getting started on some ideas about the internal assessment, which are the research-based component of that particular subject. In year 2, it's more about the deadline, so wrapping up your IAs, wrapping up your extended essay, as well as it being more focused on the exam aspect of it. So you will have to definitely put in your whole in order to get the best grade possible for your predicted grade. So it's definitely, year 2 is definitely more exam prep heavy. It should also be noted that in terms of the pacing, each subject has its own pacing. So it depends on whether or not you take an SL or HL. HL obviously has more content, so it might be a little bit slower than SL. And then some subjects tend to be a little bit more slower compared to their other subject counterparts, such as like science is taking a little bit more time to understand, especially because they're so content heavy compared to the other social sciences. But that could of course vary from person to person, or that could vary from school to school. It all depends on what you take as your SL and what you take as your HL. But it should also be said that academics aren't the only core component. Your extracurriculars matter just as much, especially if you're eyeing the top universities. There are 2 types of extracurriculars. First are the university-focused ones. So these could be things like volunteering, getting into competitions, taking up leadership roles, or even prepping for the SAT if you're applying to places like America. The other type is known as CAS, which stands for Creativity, Activity, and Service, and is a mandatory component of the diploma program. This is a component in which you can plan activities, you need to reflect on them, and it shows your growth over time. So this is more focused on what you want to do personally and can be focused on very, very minor things as well, such as your hobbies, or you can expand it to major projects as well. So CAS gives you more variability, whereas in your university applications, you need to make sure all of your extracurriculars are very strong and can stand out on the portfolio. Speaking of extracurriculars, it should be important to note that DP1 is your golden opportunity. Trust us, you will not have the time to do your extracurriculars in DP2 once the IAs and the exam deadlines catch up to you. Now, in terms of what you can do for your CAS, my general advice would be to focus on what you love to do. So if you're passionate about art, maybe you can start a workshop. And if you're passionate about sports, maybe you can organize a sports charity event or a sports match. So the CAS gives you a lot of variability on what you want to do. It should also be important to note that there are CAS projects and there are also CAS experiences. CAS experiences are usually temporary. They're only a matter of once, it's like a one and done experience, whereas a project is something that you are truly passionate about, requires a lot more team members, and usually focuses on one or more strands. It could focus on both creativity and service, or all three: creativity, activity, and service, and usually is supposed to last for more than a month. So the CAS project takes up definitely a lot more of your time. And this is also not to say that the university extracurriculars and the CAS extracurriculars cannot align. Both of them definitely do align, especially the CAS project that you do. Since it's such a major and time-heavy project, it can definitely contribute a lot to your university extracurricular and can also go into your university college application as well. Choosing your subjects, it's especially important to think ahead to what you'll be studying in university.
An important thing to note is that if your school offers a trial period, use it. Seriously, try out different subjects before locking them in, because it can save you so much stress later. Sometimes the subjects you think you love turn out to be completely different once you actually see the kind of workload and the thinking they require. If your school has an option, use the trial period time to talk to different teachers, seniors, or even look at past papers to understand what each subject actually involves and the kind of syllabus it has. It's better to make smaller adjustments early on in your DP journey than to realize halfway through that a subject isn't the right fit for you, because then it becomes very hard to just catch on. Another thing I would like to talk about is that when you decide your DP subjects, you should think about three primary things. First of all, the university prerequisites. If you already have a rough idea of what you might want to study later in university, make sure you're choosing subjects in the DP that align with that. For example, if you're considering a career in medicine or engineering, you'll definitely need higher level like biology or physics and math, extended mathematics, or as we call it here, mathematics AA or mathematics AI. But if you're more into going into law or economics or psychology, subjects like English, global politics, or economics might make much more sense to choose. And even if you're not 100% sure yet, it's smart to keep most of your options open. Second of all, you should consider your strengths and interests. 2 years in the DP is a very, very long time to stay committed to subjects. So really pick the ones carefully that genuinely excite you. If you enjoy what you're studying, it won't feel like a chore or some work you have to do, because then you'll actually look forward to learning and it will make it a lot easier to study that subject. On the other hand, if you choose a subject just because your friends are taking it or because it looks very impressive, it usually backfires later. And third of all, balance. It's very tempting to take all of your hardest subjects at higher level to prove a point to universities, but trust me, that workload can get intense. So take what you can manage, don't go over the top. The key is to challenge yourself, but without burning out. Mix it up, maybe take 2 demanding higher level subjects, for example math AAHL and physics HL, that align with your goals, and one that you really enjoy. That way you can stay motivated and still have time for things like CAS, extended essay, and life. So basically just plan strategically, think about your future, but also think about what will keep you unhappy and balanced throughout the DP. And here's another pro tip: check university course requirements early on, especially if you're thinking about medicine, engineering, or law, because different universities have very specific subject prerequisites, and it's much easier to plan ahead than to realize later that you're missing something important. And even if you're not totally sure about what you want to do ahead, just keep looking up a few universities or courses that really interest you to get a sense of what's expected, because it helps you make a lot smarter subject choice decisions, and it also helps you to keep your options open for later. So before you finalize your subjects, don't be hasty when you're finalizing it. Spend a little time researching the universities, the subject prerequisites, and the career you want to pursue. Trust me, it'll save you a lot of stress in DP2 when college applications start rolling around. So now that we're done with this, and once your subjects are locked in, how are you actually assessed throughout the 2 years? Let's discuss that.
Let's face it, DP is going to be full of assessments, exams, But all of these assessments and exams are eventually going to build up to your predicted grades. So be sure to use each assessment as not as a verdict, but as a checkpoint to better understand how you yourself can improve on any of your subjects.
Firstly, we're going to look at the three core subjects, which are the extended essay, the CAS, and the TOK. So for the extended essay, you're going to ideally work on a subject which you're very acquainted with, you're very expert in, and you're going to choose a topic which you're familiar with, which you actually like to study, because you're going to be going very in-depth on these topics. So you ideally want to choose a research topic and a research question which is very good, and you want to start this in DP1, because in DP2 you're going to be dealing with a lot of deadlines, especially with your IEAs as well, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. And for your CAS, I would suggest you choose some project which you are very familiar with, in an environment you're familiar with, so especially in your community and all. And for the theory of knowledge, you're going to complete your exhibition in DP1 for most schools, and you're going to start working on your TOK essay in DP2. So you want to have that in mind, that TOK is not that heavy if you work in class, so make sure you're working in class. And for your internal assessments, choose a topic which is familiar within your subjects and work on that. So I know you all are feeling overwhelmed, so don't worry. Here are some general tips to help you thrive through it in life. So firstly, please get your teacher recommendations early. I made this mistake in DP1 and I'm suffering through it now, because I actually switched schools between DP1 and 2, so I don't have that communication with my previous teachers. So please let them know that you want their recommendation, let them know that you're applying to these universities in DP2, so make sure you get that done. And participate actively in class and activities and projects, because your teachers can't give a recommendation about you if they don't even have anything to recommend about. You know, you have to actively participate, you have to actively show your vitality, show your passion for the subject, and that will get you an A+ recommendation letter. Master time management and self-discipline. This one is a very S tier importance, because time management is personally something I suffered with, and you all are going to suffer with in IB, because this is like university level curriculums, so you gotta actively work in IB. Prioritize your mental health though, because it's gonna get really tough. Your mentors are around, your school probably has a mentor that you can reach out to, your coordinator is there for you, everybody is there, your family is also there, all your friends are there, and we are here at the IBlieve community. So if you're ever feeling pressured, feel free to reach out. Don't worry about it. Look for opportunities as well, such as internships, especially like junior internships. Most schools offer them as part of an internship program, but you should be looking out on your own as well, especially if you want to get into some top universities out there. And a tip highlight is that DP isn't a sprint, it's a marathon with some unexpected hills. And to make that marathon easier, you'll want the right tools. Some of the starter tools here are, of course, the IB subject guides. You want to get familiar with your subject as soon as possible. Look at the components, look at the papers, look at all the assessment criterion, because that's going to give you those 7s and 6s in IB, because I'm telling you, that's like a cheat code for success. And you want to look at the IB website for these. IB uploads these every time they get the subject update as well. So if you're dealing with a new subject such as the computer science syllabus that recently came out, make sure to check the IB website and not look at outdated resources. For our student tools, we use the IBlieve website that has a lot of great resources. In fact, the ambassador team is working on a really great Notion project, which is going to have all the latest resources, which is going to make your IB journey a lot easier. And personally, I use Classify for IEAs, so they have really great IEA examples. It's paid, but you have some free examples in there as well. And subject specific books are really good, like the Healthy Mathematics. I use that to study my AHL, and flashcards you can get from Quizlet and Anki.
Thanks for watching. We hope this really helped you understand the IBDP better and you're feeling a lot more prepared now.
And if you have any questions, drop them down in the comment section below and one of us will surely reach back to you.